All right, well, this is Gypsy. We have Winter and Atlas outside. We didn't really have any videos for either one of them. We worked with them quite a bit. But basically, she's the one we're concerned about because she's an older dog and she's so much smaller than the other two dogs, were Husky and German Shepherd size. And we just had a little bit of a dust up between them. And Atlas is the dog that she gets into it with, who's the puppy. And he's never bit her, but I hear a lot of people like, oh yeah, they're fine, they get in fights, but they don't actually until. So it usually isn't until. We want to make sure that's not the case. She acts like a hall monitor dog. She barks at them when they start playing together. Even though they're playing appropriately, that's disturbing the peace, stop it. And so I think a lot of this is, she probably has some cortisol in her blood, which is a stress hormone. And it's just a puppy. And so, I mean, that's normal puppy behavior. He's not an aggressive dog. He's not doing anything really too inappropriate. He's a demand barker. Even a mother might, after like a couple of rough days, tell the dad when he comes home, you're going to watch the child. I have to get out of the house. The child's been crying all day long, and it's a mother's DNA, but she still gets stressed out from that. That's all can happen to dogs as well. I think this is basically, she's gotten in a behavior pattern of getting so used to growling at the other dogs. She just does it anytime a dog comes around or she hears a sound or any of these things where it's not really appropriate anymore for her original reason for it, but she's just in a behavior pattern or a habit of doing so. So I went over, it's important to understand that anything your dog is doing when you pet it or give it attention is what you're rewarding, even if you're correcting or yelling at the dog, which you shouldn't do. But a lot of us think of punishment or corrective as a negative. For dogs, it's validating. They just want your attention. And so it's important that anything your dog is doing, if you pet it, pick it up, give it attention or correct it, the dog's like, yes, it's working. But at the same time, we also, anything that the dogs do in our presence that we don't specifically disagree with, you're giving 2 thumbs up. You're saying, I approve of that activity. So it's important that if she is barking, if the one of the dogs is barking at her, even if there's nothing going on, it's just demand barking, that we get up and disagree with that. Now, the demand barking towards the dogs we would disagree with, towards a human we would not, because that's going to cause problems. Now, I did come up with some solutions for the demand barking. So what I would do is I'd recommend that the guardians practice, especially with Atlas, leaving the room. And well, actually, now I just thought of a second thing we could do. But the first thing I would do is just go to all the areas of the room, get the tricky trainers that I'm leaving you, tear them in half, so you have 2 treats for each out, and do this just primarily with Atlas for now, because I think it's you can do it with all the dogs, but that's, I think, the most important. So show me you have a treat, and then throw the treat just 2 feet outside the doorway. Do this for every doorway, and this is a pretty open floor plan in this house. So every area, so there's a carpet here. We'd say I could throw one here and say out, there out, there out, there out. So out just means to leave the area or leave the room. And so what I do is I typically toss one, the dog goes and gets it. Anytime the dog gets a treat, they should hear the command word after the treat goes in their mouth. So she runs outside, licks up the treat, and hears the word out. Then she comes back, and we throw it again, and she again she hears the word out when she leaves. Then I would go to the next doorway and do 2 outs there. Once I've done every portal or area of the house that I want the dog to be trained to leave for, then I would stand outside of the area and I would throw the treat into the carpet here, and I would call this maybe media, or living. This is the living room. When I throw in the kitchen, I would say kitchen, dining room, the name of each kid's bedroom, or come up with a nickname for each one, Lincoln bedroom or whatever you want to call it. So now you can direct the dog to leave every room or to go to every room. After enough repetition, you say out, and the dog will want to leave. A lot of times when we tell the dog to leave is when we're frustrated or upset with the dog, and they almost look at that because association, that's the only time you ask me to leave. So they start to associate out means that I'm being punished or you're upset with me, and they will kind of slink out of the room. So that's why doing this with a positive dog training and throwing the treats out, the dog, oh, go out of the room and get a treat? Sure, I'm happy to do that. And then it would take away that negativity. Now, something else you could do is actually teach him to go to a dog bed in another room. And I was going to do that for here, but I'll go through it now in this video. So what I would do is have the dog bed in the other room, and then basically just tell him, what I would do is go there and just throw the treat onto the dog bed while he's watching you. Come up with a funny word for that dog bed. So maybe call it Jamaica. So we throw the treat on the dog bed. The second he licks up, we say Jamaica. When he gets off the dog bed, throw another one there. And keep doing this. You don't have to do a dog bed. You could do, I've seen people do this with like towels or just like a floor mat, but it's outside of this room, outside the room that you hang out in. So the idea is first we throw the treats. We do this about 10 or 12 treats in a row. Then when the dog's not paying attention, I get the dog looking over here and I throw a treat on there where he doesn't see me throw the treat, or she in this case. And then don't say a word. So for the dog bed or whatever, the towel or floor mat, just make sure it's a light white, white, light cream, or light gray. Dogs are colorblind, so if you have a pattern or it's a really dark color, she might not see this on top of it, where if it's on white, it'll stand out right away. So you leave a treat there, sneak one in there when the dog's not paying attention, and just wait. When she sees it, or he sees it in this case, runs over and licks up, we say Jamaica again. So the first way is we let him see us throw it. Second way, we leave it there, and just when he finds it on his own, without us telling him, we say the word Jamaica. And the third one is I bring the dog over into a sit or an LAY on the dog bed, and I give it the treat, and I would say Jamaica as well. These are 3 ways to entice the dog to go there. Then what I would do is after you do this, after a while, that you'll notice that if you're hanging out in that area, the dog starts going to the dog bed on its own. The second stage is when the dog goes there, then we throw the treat. So now it's like every time I come, I see people throwing treats here, and I go over here and good things happen to me when I go here. But after a while, it's like, now I leave and I look and there's a treat waiting there. I should wait here. And after a while, now I come here and it rains treats. So you have to do this quite a bit, but eventually when you get to a situation where she's on her dog bed and he's growling at her, you say that and he can go to his dog bed. Now you can do either one of those or both of those, but you want to have that strong command. Now keep in mind, if they're going at it, he's probably not going to listen in the moment. So when they are going at it, we have to separate the dogs. And one of the things we talked about was, and I saw one of the dust ups, they were both equally to blame. So it's usually I say take the instigator dog out of the other room and make it wait. But for these dogs, we separated them and they got calmer, but not calm. And as soon as we let go, they went right back at it again. So what I do is I would get in a habit of taking one of the dogs out of the room. Did you guys go through a focus exercise in our puppy classes? Where you hold the treats down here, the dog looks at your face.
Oh, yeah.
So there's videos for that on our website, message if you can't find it. But I would go into the other room and practice that focus exercise with the dog, because that's literally what it is the dog's now focusing on you. And wait until the dog's completely calm before you bring it back out. Now, if she's the instigator, you have to do what you got to do in the moment, but try to avoid picking her up, because picking her up is a reward. The higher they sit, the more rank or status they have. So I try to separate them if possible. But again, in the moment, you got to do what you got to do. All right, now for her, because she is such a dramatically smaller dog, I would recommend that the guardians create a safe enclave for her, a place that she can retreat to. Dogs have a fight or flight response. They're programmed to run and attack things, run away from things. She has nowhere to go to get away from the other dogs. I've seen people build it into their cabinet under their TV and just sacrifice one little section and just drill a cat-like hole so that she can go in through the side and she can be a safe, protected place. She can even... Actually, I know it's a nice, I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's a nice place that she can go and she can still be part of the room and see everybody, but the dogs can't go to her. And she can start engaging with her flight mode. That will have a diminishing effect on her fight mode. And because it's not going to go very well if her and Atlas actually get into a real fight. And so giving her the ability and helping her practice moving away is much more desirable than having them fight, right? So give me the treat and I'm content. So if not, you can get a kennel, put a kennel somewhere kind of in the area and just build a little frame in front of it. So it's got like a little square that only she can get into and the other dogs can't. And you might have to kind of teach her to go in there, just show her and throw a treat in there, maybe leave one on the lip. But eventually the dog should start going in there pretty quickly. And after a while, and every time she goes in there, come up with a word. Call it like sanctuary or Switzerland or something that means a neutral area. And then you can trigger, so if she starts growling at one of the dogs, she's not going to recognize I can move away at first. She might need a little help. So if she sees the dogs are playing rough and she doesn't like it, she starts growling and we say Switzerland, she runs in there and then she gets a treat. Now they actually make treat dispensing toys. I've seen people that put one of those in the kennel and then it makes it's kind of a sound every time it delivers, which becomes a trigger. And so I've seen people that just after a while, they just press the button, the dog runs in there and you could preemptively see it happening before it happens. All right, so we also just went through a counterconditioning exercise. I'm going to kind of ignore that one because we have it encapsulated there. The Guardian mentioned that the doorbell is much more prominently used than a knock. The knock is just easier for us to showcase during the practice session, but it's the same principle. So again, what I would do is take the other two dogs away, have somebody who can be at your doorbell who can trigger that response for you, talk to them on the phone because the timing, that person can't be flaking off. Because you want to say ring the doorbell and then you're giving the treat right away immediately after. And after a while, and move her farther away from the chime box. Sometimes you actually have to cover the chime box like a pillow to muffle the sound. My 3 ways of kind of lowering the intensity is increasing the distance, slowing down the speed, or turning down the volume. So in this case, we're going to try to turn down the volume by actually just muffling it. Or you can practice it with her in the basement. And then gradually get her a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Eventually, we're going to practice it with her right next to it. It's as loud as it can get, and she doesn't respond to it. But I think if we get her to stop responding, that's going to be profoundly helpful. Now, talking about the big knucklehead, Atlas. Atlas took our puppy classes, and so I got a little bit of a rundown from Taylor. Oh, excuse me, our puppy class teacher, who said he's a very high, and the Guardian said the same thing. He's a very high energy dog. The Guardians do a much better job. I would say they're in like the top 10 percentile in terms of exercising their dog. Most people I ask how much exercise does the dog get, and they all say exactly the same thing: not enough. Literally word for word, that's what everybody says. This Guardian runs with Atlas and walks with Atlas, plays Frisbee with Atlas, and so he's doing a great job. And the problems that you have would be much worse if you weren't doing those things, but I think we can supplement them. So I went through some creative ways of exercise. Remember, tossing the treats on the stairs, using the laser. Laser's not appropriate for all dogs. These dogs are, it's okay. Playing Frisbee or fetch. The last one you can do is scent games. So you like have the dog outside the room and you just hide treats around the corner. The dog runs around the corner of the table. Oh, there's a treat. Every time it licks up, maybe say hunt or search or find it. And so after a while, now that becomes a game for the dog to do, and it's very mentally draining using their nose. Because their nose, it's just the nose controls 60% of the dog's brain. All right, so I think exercising Atlas is going to be like 50% of taking care of the problem. Again, he's already getting exercise, but dogs sleep 17 hours a day. So they exercise, they burn their energy, then they sleep and recharge the batteries, and all day long it's kind of back and forth like this. So what I'd like the Guardian to do is start an exercise journal, keep it for about a month. Write down the times in the left column, write a column for each dog's name, and then if we take Atlas out for a run, 45-minute run at 6 a.m. Came back and played fetch with Winter for 22 fetches. And then tossed the treats up and down the stairs for Gypsy, did 7 up-downs on the stairs. Count each down up on the stairs as 1. Come up with fun words, remember. So go down, call it, Jamaica, because that is south, and then call it, Santa Land or whatever you want. So come up with these funny words for both north and south. Eventually you can just say Jamaica, and the dog runs down to the bottom of the stairs. Basically, you keep the exercise journal. Also, if there's a fight, write down the time, what was going on immediately before the fight, and the intensity of the fight, and anything that's noteworthy about the fight. Also put down meals, which the Guardian should go to structured feeding. We'll talk about that more in a second. And then at the end of the day, we give a letter grade A through F for each individual dog. So if the dog got anything other than an A, the next day, we should exercise instead of maybe 25 up downs on the stairs for Atlas, maybe do 35. Or if it's a really low grade, instead of doing up downs the stairs 3 times a day, maybe we do it 4 or 5 times a day. And again, remember, I want the Guardians to interpret the demand barking, the getting into it with her, the launching stuff at you or dropping stuff at your feet as Atlas's way of saying, I need some exercise right now. Either you can exercise or I'm going to go have Gypsy try to handle it for me. And Gypsy would prefer you handle that for both her and Atlas. So you can remember 5 minutes on the stairs is equivalent to like a 20 or 30-minute walk. When you do all these exercise zones, max them out. So with an empty stomach, throw the treats up and down the stairs with 1 dog at a time until the dog's like, you're crazy. I've been down there 93 times. I'm not going down anymore. We want to exercise about 50 to 75% of that maximum number. The exercise journal will help you start to identify how much that should be, because if it's an A day or an F day and so on. The idea is just really get into a routine where we're exercising the dog and we can analyze that data and say, you know what, every time it's longer than this period of time, that's when Atlas gets barky or gets in troubles with Gypsy or whatever the case may be. So we can start beating her to the punch. Or him to the punch, or if there's a time of the day where dogs get the zoomies or high energy spike early in the morning and the evening. So if you know at 9:05, that's when he runs around and barks like crazy. Well, at 8:50 or 8:55, we take the dog out and start playing fetch with a glow-in-the-dark Frisbee or whatever it is and burn off that excess level of energy. If you get in a habit of interpreting that way and exercising the dog, I think you're going to see a substantial improvement in the dogs. But it'll take you about a month to keep that exercise journal before you kind of identify where it is and how much exercise each dog needs. She needs exercise too, and Winter could lose a little bit of weight. So exercise is good stimulation for them. It's also good because they're interacting with us. Now, one of the things I want the Guardian to do is teach the dog to fetch, and there's a little bit of a problem with that. Now, Atlas likes to chair things up, and then sometimes we'll I would say eat a lot of stuff, but will not spit stuff out right away. So sometimes the Guardians go over and open the mouth and physically take that away. The more that you do that, the more the dog is going to not want to open its mouth and give you stuff because you're weird. You're taking stuff literally out of my mouth. So I went over how to teach the dog to drop, which they already remember from puppy class, but just remember when the dog has an object in its mouth, quietly pull out a treat, go over there and hold it in the mouth, in front of the nose, and wait for the dog to drop it. Then put the object in the mouth, the treat in the mouth, say the word drop, and then show no interest in the item. If it is an item you have to take away, make sure you replace it with a bully stick, some sort of a trade, so the dog's getting something of equal or greater value. Now, when at one point, Atlas came over and he's throwing the thing at his guardian. Again, that should be interpreted as, I need some exercise. You can go to the stairs, but I'd love to be able to get him to teach the dog to fetch more efficiently. So what we would do is when the dog brings you that, tell it to sit. When it sits, pick it up and throw it. When I throw it, I say the word fetch. When the dog picks it up with its mouth, I say the word fetch. When the dog comes over, I drop the treat in its mouth and I say the word fetch a third time. Now, I have a dog, a Dalmatian, that's not really good at this, and I'm teaching him how to do it. And the new technique I've come up with is when he's over farting around the yard, I say here, which is his come command. He comes to me, I give him the treat. Then I wait for him to go off, and I do that about 4 or 5 times in a row until I say here, and he's just sprinting over. Then what I do is I go out and play fetch, and I play with the other dog who actually likes to fetch. And so if my dog who won't fetch, he's the anti-fetcher, gets the ball, I say here, which is the command word to come. We just did it 5 or 6 times, so he's kind of warmed up in the motion. He just comes right up, and I give him the treat. But when I give him the treat, I say the word fetch. So I'm kind of starting to change. So after a while, fetch just means come run over the human and drop whatever's in your mouth and get a treat. That's kind of the end step of the fetch. And so if you can achieve that, you get to the point where that's another powerful way to exercise. Now, Atlas loves chasing the Frisbee, but it'd be nice if he could also chase the ball. So I would throw the ball up and down the stairs instead of doing the treats. And also there are treat dispensing or automatic ball throwing machines. I don't know of one that does a Frisbee, but there are ones that'll throw balls for you. It might be something else you might want to look into. But again, I really think that exercise for Atlas is going to be a huge game changer in this house. Now, we also talked about some rules to flip the leader-follower dynamic. Oh, sorry, twice. I'm going to make you yawn. So remember, enforcing rules is not being mean. A lot of us, we interpret that because rules are introduced to us when we're kids, and we just kind of think of rules as a mean or a negative. They're not. The more rules that she has, the more smaller her world's going to be. Now, because Winter is really a good couch, she's the best behaved dog, and she loves being on the couch, I would recommend that we skip her for this first rule, which would be the dog's not allowed to be on the furniture. So basically, Atlas and Gypsy are not allowed on the furniture. Winter is. But Winter's only allowed on the furniture when the humans are here, because I would recommend you get those X mats and put them on the couch and this chair so the dogs can't get up there when you're gone. Otherwise, they're practicing the behavior we don't want. Remember, it takes 66 days to form a behavior pattern, so we want to look at enforcing these rules for 2.5 months or more. So really think of yourself, the very bare minimum would be October 1, but it might need to go longer than that. It's based on how often you practice and how well the dogs respond to it. Some dogs might need 6 months, other dogs might need 3 weeks. It varies. That would be the first rule, and once after we're done with the rule, the dog's going to go on the furniture with an invitation from a human only, because this is the human's couch. The dog needs permission from a human, and only here, not up here. She likes to get up here, and then she kind of looks down at everybody, and that's part of why she has this hall monitor sort of personality. So when you do get up here, this is where I have you, and it's only for good behavior. So if she got up here and started barking, she would have to get down. Don't push her directly towards Atlas, because that'll create a problem, but she loses that status. All right, let me see. Another thing we talked about was another rule would be the door. The dog has to sit before you open the door. Go to the door, tell Atlas to sit once, and tell him don't ask him. If he doesn't sit, walk away, sit down, pull out a magazine or a newspaper or watch TV for 1 minute, ask your Alexa for a 1 minute timer. After 1 minute, go back to the door and give him the command word again, but only say it once. But only do this if the dog's not demand barking. If Atlas comes up and is demand barking at you, don't even start the clock until after he stops barking. We want the dog to understand, I'm not at your beck and call. Matter of fact, when you try to give me orders, the exact opposite things happens. Demand barking, I'm never, ever going to reward that. Otherwise, you're just validating it. So first time I walk away from the door, 1 minute. Next time I walk away from the door, 2 minutes. If the dog doesn't comply within 3 seconds, the third time I walk away for 4 minutes and 8 minutes. I keep doubling the length of time until eventually when I go to the door and say sit, the butt hits the ground. As soon as that butt hits the ground, fly the door open as fast as you can. That becomes the reward. So as soon as I sit, the door opens. Why didn't you say so? The dog will just go start sitting at the door as his way of saying, I'd like to go outside, please. Eventually I do this with both directions. If the dog pounds at the door or nudges at the door, don't even look at it, because that's going to be validating to the dog. But eventually the dog will just go and sit there, and the next riff of this is you can make the dog sit and you open the door and wait till it hears the command word to be released. If you want to work on that, let me know. I have videos where we can come back out and show you how to do that. But I really think that's going to be a big one for dogs, because sitting is a more subordinate position, and you let them in and out the door a whole bunch of times. Put a post-it on the door, sit equals out. And if all 3 of them are here and I say sit and Gypsy sits and the other 2 don't, I'd open the door and let her out, and only her out. So I'm going to pay based on performance, not just they all get the same thing, because 2 of them were knuckleheads and she didn't. I'd also like the Guardians to go to a structured feeding. I have videos on my website for that. If you can't find it, message us and I can show you how to do it. But basically, I would feed the dogs in order of rank. The human who's feeding them should eat something first: a chip, cracker, piece of celery, carrot, something crunchy preferably. They'll take 5 or more bites. It doesn't have to be an actual meal, but it can't be faked or can't be a smoothie or coffee. They don't understand those as food. So once the human who's feeding them eats something, in 5 more bites, then we're going to invite her in. She's allowed to come in the kitchen, but the other dogs are not. Now, this is a situation where you might want to block off one area, maybe have it only them entering from over here if they're fed in the kitchen, so you have a choke point, an easier place to defend. And again, structured feeding, go to doggoneproblems.com, click on dog training tips on the search box on the right or at the bottom of the page, type in structured feeding. There's videos of me doing this with multiple dogs. It'll be challenging for a couple days, but since eating is the most important activity for dogs, if we have dominion over this, every time we feed the dogs, they respect us a little bit more as an authority figure. Plus, the other 2 dogs see that you're not letting them into the kitchen when she's eating. And she helps her see you acting and not let the other 2 dogs in. So all the dogs see you acting like a leader, which is kind of the whole point of having rules in terms of having dogs. Use passive training to give each dog unique command words. They're going to eat one at a time once we give them permission. I would start with Winter because she's your best behaved dog. Then and then I would probably feed her next. Well, she's oldest. It would be either between her and Winter. And then Atlas I would definitely feed last, but if it's between her and Winter and she keeps on trying to cross the threshold, then I would bump Winter up and Winter gets to eat. So I'm rewarding the dog's behavior that I like, so hopefully the other dogs will start emulating that behavior. Remember, when they take their first bite of food for 3 months, come up with a command word for each dog. So maybe when she eats her first bite of food, maybe we call it donuts. The next dog we call it tacos, next dog we call it pizza. So when she, for 3 months, hears the word donuts when she takes her first bite of food, she hears that the context is, I've got food in my mouth. The other 2 dogs hear it, there's no food in their mouth. So after a while, that creates a command word for her to eat food. I also like using passive training for other things. So like every time the dog drinks water, I say agua. Every time the dog, and we'll talk about passive training in a sec, but come up with specific things, especially, all the dogs don't have to have unique words, but I do that like for eating, being released, you could do that, but just things where you might want only one dog to come to you, that's a good one to have, or one dog to eat. That's where it's good to have a separate command word for each one. The dogs don't really beg very much, but I would say that when somebody's eating the food here, the dog's not allowed to be in this L shape between the couch and the chair and the table. Not allowed in the kitchen when the humans are eating. Not allowed on the dinner table around the humans are eating. And if anybody has a snack, the dog should stay 7 feet away. The Guardians here know not to give the dogs people food. A lot of dog people do that, and it trains the dog to invade your space, which is something the dog knows it should not do. But hey, you gave me food. You told me it's okay to do it. So those are some examples of rules. Did I talk about the kennel for her, the escape? Did I talk about it in this video?
I think so.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure, but just make sure she has a place to go to. Yeah, we talked about the dog bed. And rep that until you get to the point when you know you don't have to start practicing it, or you can stop practicing it, is when the dog goes to the dog bed or starts going into the kennel on its own. So for both of them, for Atlas going away from her. And so once the dog does it every once in a while on its own, every once in a while leave a treat on the dog bed or leave a treat in the kennel. So every time she goes in there, I'm reinforced. Good things happen to me. Come up with a funny word for her to go there. Call it Switzerland or something like that. Just means to go away from the other dogs. And if you see that she's on the dog bed beefing because one of the dogs are playing to, instead of waiting for her to erupt, redirect her to go away somewhere else. Then when she goes in there, give her a bully stick to gum on. She has very few teeth. Or whatever it is, so that way we redirected the dogs away, and she didn't feel like she needed to have to police them. The more that she corrects them and polices them, the more that's essentially practice, the more she's likely to do it in the future. The more we separate that and stop her from doing it, the less likely she's going to do it in the future, because essentially she's practicing it. So just make sure that you're diligent about that, and after a while the dog will start kind of doing what you want it to do. We also talked about passive training and petting with a purpose. Remember, passive training is if the dog is demanding attention from you, not demand barking, but demanding attention from you, pawing, nudging. We're going to give the dog a counter order, pet it under its chin, say just the word sit. If it's already sitting, ask it to lay down. I would recommend this house stops doing, they call it respect, and they hold their hand and the dog paws at it, which is, I love the command word, but it's all sorts of confusing for Atlas. If a dog jumps up on you or puts its paws on you, it's a way of claiming you. So I'd recommend no more respect for a while. Sounds weird. And then you can come back to it later on once these problems are gone and he's not being so boisterous. So if you want to pet the dog, you're still going to tell the dog to sit. If he doesn't sit, walk away or just sit down and turn the TV on and show the dog, I got other things to do. I wanted to give you my precious time. You didn't want it, so it goes to the next one. He's playing a little fetch. So the idea is hard to get with the dog. Works great with dogs, works great with us. So show the dog, I've got other things to do. Kind of what we do with the door. You don't sit, then I walk away, and I'm doing other things. And as soon as you do what I want, then you get a reward. And that motivates the dog to want to do that. Most of the times we don't create much motivation for our dogs to listen to us unless we actually have a treat at the ready. So for petting with a purpose, if the dog demands attention from you by pawing, nudging, barking, demand barking is different, then we're going to basically give the dog a counter order. If the dog does it, we pet it on the chin, say the word sit, and then pet as much or as little as we want. At least one pet to as many as we want to stop. And then that way the dog learns I have to ask versus telling the humans what to do. I use the word paycheck if I suspect someone's petting without a purpose. That person has to stop petting and just tell the dog to sit. When it sits, pet it on the chin, say sit. Actually, I did it the right way. You just missed it, but thanks for reminding me. Remember, it's a positive, not a negative. Also, passive training is basically waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior on its own. So every time a dog comes to you, pet it and say come. Every time it lays down, pet it and say crash or chill or whatever your word is. Like I said, every time it takes a drink of water, say the word agua. Every time it takes a bite of food, come up with a command word. You can name all your individual toys. And so this way you create a stronger vocabulary. Every time your dog brings you a toy, call it yellow snake. So, and then later on, if you want to play fetch, you say yellow snake. The dog goes and brings you an alligator. You're like, no, I want the yellow snake. So this way it has a deeper bond and relationship with you, with your dog, and more effective communication. Now for Atlas, when Atlas is demand barking, I would come up with kind of a multi-layered or tiered approach. So the first time that he barks, demand barks, I would, you want to ignore it unless it goes on for longer than like maybe 10 seconds or so. Then what I would do is I would get up and march at him using those escalating consequences and maybe make him leave the room, or better yet, tell him to leave. But a demand barking dog is essentially throwing a temper tantrum. So he's not going to be too inclined to listen to you, but always try to give the dog the opportunity to do it first. Out, doesn't out, get up and march towards him and make him reverse herd him until he's crossed the line. And the first stage is you just out. Now, eventually, if you do the out command enough, you should be able to say just out, the dog runs. So the rule is once you demand bark after longer than 10 seconds, I stand up and say out, the dog has to leave. As soon as it leaves, it can come right back in, but it has to leave the area. If it comes back and demand barks again, then it has to go out, and it has to stay out for a minute. If it does it again, then maybe 2 minutes, then 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. We wanted to keep on double length of time. However, as I mentioned earlier, a demand bark should be interpreted as I need some exercise. So you can go through the litany of these things, but I would prefer that you identify that. And so basically wait for the dog to stop demand barking, then tell it to sit. When it sits, tell it to lay down. When it lays down, pet it and say lay down. Then take it outside and play fetch, do the stairs or whatever it is. Don't just immediately get up and go play fetch. As Taylor mentioned when she was here earlier, that might train the dog to actually just bark at you for a game of fetch. So that way we have the dog do something else, and then we have the dog stop what it's doing, then do something else, and then it gets rewarded for doing this something else. All right, that was one of the kids. So let me see, what else? We went over the escalating consequences. I have videos for that as well. Forget how to do those things. But don't disagree with the demand barking. Again, that's either we tell you to leave the room, or you get more. We're going to exercise you more. Not I'm going to hiss at you because the dog. Remember, any attention from you, even if it's yelling, they're like, "Shut up!" I know. It's validating to the dog. Good attention, bad attention, the same thing. When the dogs are relaxed, I would practice that settle exercise from our puppy class. If when he is nice and relaxed, very slow stroke from the nape of the neck to the base of the tail, settle, zen, chill, whatever it is, to help that dog kind of channel or remember what that is that we want them to do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else we want to go over?
I don't think so.
Okay. So there probably are things that we both forgot. That's okay. So you have my cell phone number. Please program that in your phone after I leave. You're going to forget. You're not going to see this video for a couple of days, so remember to do that right away. If you have any questions or problems, please text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. In our society, we like to complain. So don't wait and complain. Just, hey, David, hit a plateau. Now, when I say the out command, when they're fighting, he won't do it, and we'll come up with a new solution for it. Now, she also has some dog aggression issues. I'm hoping that the rule, enforcing the rules, flipping the leader follower dynamic, helping them develop self-control and all that fun stuff is going to help have a positive impact. She's not really a super duper social outdoor dog, so it's not the biggest thing in the world for her. But if you do want to work on that, let me know in about a month how things are going. If she's still reactive when you take her on walks or whatever situation, let me know, and Taylor and I can come, or I can bring somebody else as well with another dog, a big dog, to trigger that response and show you how to use basically a similar principle to counter conditioning in the video above, but to teach her that when a big dog approaches, in fact, instead of barking at it, you should be thankful because good things happen when that big dog comes around. All right, well, this is, I keep on wanting to say Annabelle, which is the dog I worked with a couple days ago, but this is not Annabelle. This is Gypsy. And then let's go ahead and let the other two knuckleheads in, so we'll have them here at the end of the video. You're not going to like this very much, so let me move you over here. Atlas. This is Atlas. This is a growl. Winter. 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 Well, Winter. Winter, come here. I think Winter is actually listening to what she's saying. Winter. But remember, taking her out of the room, or Atlas if necessary. If you don't know who, just whoever's the most intense. But take them out of the room, out of sight, out of mind. So you hear it's grumbling, but it's a little bit less. She can hear him panting. But again, I think this is the neural pathway. She's just so in a habit of doing this. It's going to take a little bit of time. You're in ebbs and flows, good days and bad days. But if you stay consistent with this stuff, you should start seeing more good days and bad days. And eventually, you'll just forget the problems even happen. That's why I try to get people to do a review for me right away after a week. You're like, yeah, that's just normal. All right, well, this grumble butt right over here again is Gypsy, and this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.